Hi, I'm Rob Price, and I'm talking to some inspirational leaders of some of the leading AI and Gen AI businesses in the world. Welcome to Futurise.
All right. So I'm Ben Middleton. I'm one of the co-founders of Futuria. I've spent the last 20 years largely in government and digital, helping to innovate and provide different sorts of solutions across data and AI to make a real difference in some ways to society, in some ways to keeping all of us safe. Um, and that work continues now with Futuria.
So tell me a bit about more about Futuria. I mean, what does it do? What is it? What was in your mind when you thought one day, hey, I'm going to set up a new AI business?
I think we were looking across the market of AI and how it was being applied to business. And in many ways, the thing that was frustrating, I think, for me and a lot of people that I've spoken to over the last year or more about this has been that actually they're not really seeing anything different. So, you know, there's a chatbot for AI, or there's a data science solution, or something that sits in the established pecking order of AI solutions that's supposed to provide a great new wave of efficiency or innovation or whatever it is. And I think that the last 9 months we've been really searching for a different way, a different paradigm. And in essence, the power of AI is in using it to overcome problems in a manner nobody's seen yet, to innovate in a way that nobody's thought of yet. And so the idea that AI itself could play a part in innovation and dreaming the world up differently is very much at the heart of what we've done for a while now as Futuria, which is um, the world of AI as a team member and using that paradigm, using that thinking to solve problems, using AI in a way that people may not be used to. And in doing so, helping them to reimagine their businesses in a light that they may not be expected to see. And so we've made very much that the cornerstone of what we've done over the last year or more.
And we often talk about, for those listening to the podcast, what their interest might be. So who typically are you engaging in that conversation, whether that's the type of business or the type of roles that people fulfill in that business? Who can it help, the things that you're doing?
Um, I think what's been almost uniform about the conversations we've had is they've been with business stakeholders. They've heard the hype about AI. They don't really understand what it means to have AI in their organization yet. But they're definitely saddled with some of the traditional problems. I mean, certainly in government, um, you're seeing huge pressure on budgets. You're seeing, questions around, efficiencies and savings and the need to do more for the same. But equally, the hype around AI is suggestive that that there is really a different way of thinking, a different approach around how you might do any of this. And so that's where we're finding businesses when we meet them, they've heard the hype, they're frustrated because they're not able to lay their hands on how to activate it in their organization. And I think what we've been successful at, and with the AI team member concept, is giving their concept in which they can envisage it being used in their organization, and giving them a way in which they can imagine their teams using it to augment them and to superpower them. Um, and so it is business stakeholders that they need the results, they need them now. But equally, the idea of putting a chatbot in front of everything isn't doing it for them either. So a lot of our work has been about reducing the space between a business and activating practical use of AI.
So I've talked to a lot of organizations on this podcast, and a lot of people with passions around different aspects. Maybe they're using AI agents to improve the financial services or the financial processes in an organization. Maybe they're focused on sales and the bidding process. Maybe they're using it to help them write documents faster, or all sorts of things. what are the use cases that you see as most relevant for the work that Futuria is doing? Is it a tightly defined use case, or do you actually see a number emerging?
There are a number of emerging, and I can give a few examples, but the thing that unites them all is that they're what you might call use cases associated with complex thinking or complex problems in an organization. So perhaps to give a couple of examples of those. So, one of the engagements that we've been working on has the challenge of assuring and estimating large programs. And, that's not a trivial ask. It requires a range of domain specialists, process specialists. It requires um, a process and an approach that needs to flex around the content and the subject matter. So it's not a straightforward A to B. It doesn't fit quite in a workflow. Um, and yet the drive for efficiencies and savings lives there too in the more complex problem side of things. And so where we've spent an awful lot of time is bringing the power of AI agents to that particular party to solve those complex problems by bringing them together in a collective and having them collaborate around exactly that. How do I estimate a large infrastructure program? Well, I might have an agent for how to estimate it. I might have an agent for the domain expertise. I might have an agent around the economy. And actually what we've been able to do is create quite emergent behavior by taking an AI agent, having it specialize on particular subject areas, and then orchestrating them in a way where they collaborate around a shared goal. And that's been hugely transformative in terms of thinking. So, in that example there, the original goal was really about how do I do it more efficiently? How do I, scale to meet the demand I might have? What they found though by the end is actually they're almost reinventing the craft of what it means to do estimating. Is it okay anymore to go and have one pass through performing an estimate, or actually now that we can use AI agent teams to do that 100 times to get a range of estimates, can we simultaneously be efficient and produce a better result? And I think that's what I mean is that those sorts of conversations and examples, they don't only sort of serve to make things all efficient, they're also serving to reinvent. And I think when, collectively the technology industry finds the right paradigm around AI in terms of its adoption in core business, it will know it's been successful because that's the sort of impact that they're able to make. It's not just about efficiency, it's about really changing the way and the paradigm in which everyone works.
Which I imagine is quite a radical thing to be talking about because we live in a world of continuous improvement and lean and Six Sigma and making things a bit better, a bit faster, to improve margins or otherwise if you're in government. Whereas what you're talking about is throwing everything up in the air and seeing how it lands and in a very different way. I'm guessing that's a challenge in some ways from a believability point of view. I mean, if I stood in front of somebody and say, "Hey, I can make your process 50% faster, and these are the things that I'll do," then I'm sure they can probably get their head around it more easily than some of the conversations that you must be having. I mean, no one's going to buy that future state operating model that's magically defined. There must be a set of steps that they go through on a journey. Is it becoming clear what those set of steps? How does someone explore, I guess, the art of the possible with what you're describing?
You're absolutely spot on. I mean, the number of conversations I've had now over the course of the last year or so, where you tell that story, and the first reaction is, "Blimey, that's a bit far-fetched, isn't it? You're telling me I've got, AI agents who are experts in things, and AI agents running a process, and AI agents assuring a process, and crikey, I mean, I've heard some things in my time, but it's a real ask for me to understand that. And then you show them, and then you have the sort of believability piece because you can activate it right in front of them. You can see AI agents actually working in the corporation, working together to solve a problem. So it's like many things. There's nothing quite so much as seeing it to believe it. But I think the thing that really I found best helping in terms of people getting their head around what we're talking about is if you take a traditional process in an organization and you think about, okay, how, as you said, how am I going to improve this process? Then you get into traditional approaches around, monitoring the process and thinking, well, maybe if I intervene there and improve that part, I can do this. And thinking, as people do in those situations about the how things are done and the what is done is sort of almost a bit, it impairs the creative process. And actually, the question we've started to pose instead is if you can think of the world as AI team members, and if you can think of them complementing, augmenting, superpowering an organization, then the question you ask at that point is if I was to put together a world-class team to solve this problem, who would I have in it, and what would they do, and how would it be uh, connected together, and what goal would we give it? And so I'm not defining the how so much as the ingredients and the what and the goal. And a number of times I've been surprised so far by the outcome of an AI agent team giving me an approach to a problem I hadn't quite expected. The delight and surprise has been the innovation in the process as much as it has been about the efficiency or as much as it has been about the scalability. And at times, we've happened upon like approaches things we would never have dreamed of before just by allowing worlds that don't traditionally crash together in systems and don't traditionally come together in conventional process thinking to create experiences and approaches that we've not seen before. And I think when you say to people, actually, just imagine it as a real team to bring together to solve the same problem. Yes, they might think of it as a bit far-fetched, but equally, um, they the penny starts to drop around what we're really talking about.
So in a sense, if I've understood it right, it's almost like high-performing teams of AI agents, maybe with some people in there as well, combined with
Yes,
almost OKRs, goal-centered targets that you want them to set off and achieve. I guess the other
that's
thing
right.
that
So
people are then thinking though is how the hell do you control them? How do you make sure, if control's the right word, how do you ensure that they do that with appropriate transparency, cognizant of regulations and ethical decisions that they need? I mean, is that another agent?
Yes. So, I mean, what's really interesting about a multi-agent approach is it naturally gets you to the point where you have to see interchange of information between agents, which means you have an opportunity to see the content that is being produced, the lineage of that content, the part that that content is playing in the overall process that's taking place. So, one of the powerful aspects, if you like, of an AI agent approach is it allows you to intervene and it allows you to understand whereas perhaps if you're working inside of a single model at the moment, the transparency of that and the explainability of that, there's a lot of work that the industry needs to do to bring that up to, a level where people are going to confidently trust it in high assurance environments. So now that you've got the ability to effectively have that work being part of an AI agent system, you're spot on. You can introduce an AI agent into the mix who might be armed with let's call it a checklist around what is appropriate in this conversation. What do I need to be looking out for? Finely tuned around the things we're concerned about or care about. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that you wouldn't want, as you suggested there, Rob, a human in the team checking work, validating until we all get confident with the role that's playing AI in the world. But actually, to have least a first pass where the system is in effect playing its own checks and balances around what it means to be appropriate or responsible feels like a valuable contribution to the debate.
Cool. So, one of the things that we always talk about is attracting talent into the team. And I guess one of the challenges here is you are talking about things that are pretty much new. I mean, it's not that many months ago that we started talking about, well, like even large language models, let alone agents, let alone multi-agent teams. So you can't be kind of out there in the market looking for 20 years of experience in these things. How do you attract people to work as part of the organization, both so far and of course, obviously, as you continue to grow?
it's really interesting. I can remember a number of times to date whereby the technology we needed to, you know, improve our AI agent system capability didn't exist at the point we dreamed it up, and lo and behold, 3 or 4 weeks later, we'd sort of grown into the art of the possible, and we were able to implement the thing we couldn't think of before. So I think, traditionally, you look at the talent that you need in the organization, you think, um, I need them to be good at X, or I need them to be, an expert in Y. And actually, the thing that we found vastly more powerful than that, is an experimental mindset. So most of what we've done over the course of the last, 9, 10 months is to experiment, and to experiment hard, and to fail, and to try things that didn't work, in anticipation that in 2 or 3 weeks' time that would come along. And we've not, there's not been a moment that hasn't been proven wrong yet. So therefore, what we're really looking for is people who love the subject, who really are looking to try and experiment, and to learn, and to develop, but equally can philosophically get into a slightly bigger picture of what does this all mean for a client when it all comes together, and how do we harness all this powerful technology in a way clients can immediately understand. So experimental mindset, ability to translate into what clients need, and above all, the resilience to keep going, when something feels unsurmountable this week, it will definitely be solvable next week.
So tell me a bit about ambition. I mean, how are you doing today in the sense of where are you on the journey, and where would you love to be in 2, 3 years' time?
So we're 10 months in, and I think what has been the delight and the surprise has been the seriousness of which we've been able to take such a young company into some very, high profile, high assurance organizations, and help them already, you know, dream up the impossible with AI. And so, it feels like actually the, the vision is as important to us as anything else. And I think, as I said at the start of our conversation, I just don't think yet that the AI industry has happened upon the ultimate way in which AI is going to be consumed by organizations to best harness it. I think, we are laboring in some traditional paradigms trying to retrofit AI to things. And I think that an organization out there is going to be able to do something quite profound in terms of how it reimagines what it means to deliver AI in an AI era. And I don't think anybody's got that, um, concept firmly in mind yet, but I'd like Futuria to be the organization that keeps pivoting, keeps learning, keeps developing its offering, so that, of course, stays ahead of the marketplace, but are the ones that get to that point where the penny drops at everybody around that utility of AI.
Excellent. And I think just to finish, I want to go back to something that we talked about earlier on, which was just the complexity sometimes of describing what you're about in a way that lands and can be consumed, and organizations choose to experiment to understand what the new art of the possible might be. And if you had one ask of anyone listening today as to how they might think about something differently going forward, one different action that they might do, what would that be?
Do it now. I think AI speed is days, and maybe weeks at a push, but so much of industry is oriented around months and years of process, um and that's not going to be good enough. There are going to be organizations who find a way to be so agile, so quick, so experimental in AI. Those are the organizations that are going to get vastly ahead. And there's so much talk out there around papers around AI, or approaches, consulting documents around AI, or whatever it is. For goodness sake, do something. Start learning in your organization. Um, a lot of the breakthrough moments for clients we've spoken to so far have been when we've shown them, after 2 or 3 days, a proof of concept that really illustrates to them what their future world can look like. and then they're interested, and then they can see the vision. I think any organization that is not experimenting in units of days and weeks is going to get left behind. So I think my big advice about everything is do get going.